Close your eyes. Now open them. You're standing in Morocco 300,000 years ago. In front of you, impossible. 7 different species of humans are gathered at a water source. Some have skulls that bulge backward. Others barely reach your waist. One towers above you with muscles that would shame a bodybuilder. Behind them, yellow eyes watch from the shadows. A short-faced bear the height of a basketball hoop, waiting for the weakest to separate from the group. This isn't fantasy. This happened. For one brief moment in Earth's history, 7 human species shared this planet with monsters that would make your worst nightmares look like house pets. One of those species was us, Homo sapiens. We were the scrawniest, the weakest, the least likely to survive. While every other human species and every giant that stalked them is gone. How? Why? The answer is written in blood, bone, and the kind of survival story that Hollywood couldn't invent if it tried. Welcome to Earth's greatest murder mystery, where everyone's a suspect and everyone's a victim, except us. The waterhole at Jebel Ehud reflected stars that no human eyes have seen for 300 millennia, but tonight it reflected something else, faces. 7 different kinds of human faces, all thirsting, all wary, all real. The Neanderthals arrived first, as they always did. Muscles rippled beneath pale skin as they moved with the confidence of apex predators. Their massive skulls housed brains larger than yours, 1,750 cubic centimeters of cold, adapted intelligence. They'd owned Europe for 200,000 years. This was just another night. Until it wasn't. From the east came shadows that moved wrong, too tall, too thin. Denisovans, though no one would call them that for another 299,700 years. They'd walked here from the Altai Mountains, their genes carrying secrets that would one day let Tibetans breathe where others suffocate. Tonight, they just wanted water. The Homo erectus family approached from the south, and even the Neanderthals tensed. These were the old ones, the originals. They'd been walking the earth for 1.7 million years while everyone else was still theoretical. Their technology was outdated, their brains smaller, but they'd survived ice ages that killed everything else. Respect was automatic. Then came the impossible ones, Homo naledi from southern Africa, with brains no bigger than chimps but hands that crafted tools with disturbing precision. They shouldn't exist. Every theory said big brains meant survival. Yet here they stood, proof that science would spend centuries being wrong. Dragging primitive spears, a band of Homo heidelbergensis emerged from the northern darkness. The ancestors, the ones who gave birth to both Neanderthals and sapiens. Looking at them was like looking at your own grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, multiplied by 10,000. From the island forests came the smallest, Homo floresiensis, the hobbits. 3.5 feet tall, they'd hunted miniature elephants with miniature spears on their miniature island. But there was nothing miniature about their survival skills. They'd outlast almost everyone here. And finally, trembling, came us, Homo sapiens. Fresh from our African cradle with our weird flat faces and bubble-shaped skulls. We had no muscles like the Neanderthals, no ancient wisdom like Erectus, no size advantage, no special adaptations, no reason to confidence. But we had something else, something invisible, something that would kill every other human at this waterhole. We had ideas that spread like viruses. We had language that painted pictures in other minds. We had the ability to believe in things that didn't exist. Gods, spirits, tomorrow's hunt, next season's gathering. We could convince others to die for ideas. We were weakest in body, but we were contagious in thought. The waterhole was silent except for careful sipping. 7 species, 1 planet. The mathematical probability of this moment was so small that astronomers would call it impossible. Yet here they were. Here we were. In the shadows beyond the firelight, Smilodon watched with professional interest. The saber-toothed cat had no preference for which human species it ate. Meat was meat, but it noticed something the humans didn't. Only one species looked at the stars while drinking. Only one species drew patterns in the mud. Only one species was already planning tomorrow while surviving tonight. The cat didn't know it was watching the future. It only knew that these strange apes were easier to hunt when they were thinking about something else. By dawn, 7 species would scatter back to their territories. In 50,000 years, 6 would be extinct. But tonight, for one perfect moment, humanity was a rainbow of possibilities, gathered at a waterhole under stars that would never see such diversity again. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what we fear in death is merely the loss of sensation. He never met Arctodus Simos. The short-faced bear didn't kill for hunger. It killed for territory, and its territory was everything it could see, smell, or imagine. Standing 11 feet tall on hind legs, weighing 2,090 pounds of muscle and rage, it was North America's undisputed king. When it walked, the ground trembled. When it ran, 40 miles per hour across open terrain, nothing escaped. Dr. Paul Matthias spent his life studying Arctodus bones. This wasn't just a big bear, he told colleagues at the University of Alaska. This was evolution's experiment in pure, terrifying efficiency. Longer legs than any bear alive. A skull built for bone crushing. Intelligence that let it memorize every water source in 1,000 square mile territory. The first humans to cross Beringia 23,000 years ago didn't have paleontology degrees. They had something better, raw, bowel-loosening terror that kept them alive. The Clovis people left us their nightmares carved in stone. Cave art showing bears that towered over mammoths, surrounded by human figures the size of insects. But one trackway tells the real story. White Sands, New Mexico, 20,000 years ago. A woman carrying a toddler walks across mudflats. Her footprints show she's hurrying, stride length increasing, toes digging deep for purchase. Behind her, offset by hours, come prints that make archaeologists' blood run cold. Arctodus tracks, following, patient. She knew it was there, says Dr. Sally Reynolds, who led the excavation. The footprints show her changing direction repeatedly, doubling back, trying to confuse her trail. She was using evasion techniques we see in modern prey animals, but Arctodus wasn't just any predator. The bear's intelligence was its most terrifying feature. Unlike modern bears that rely on brute force, Arctodus played chess. Fossil sites show evidence of ambush hunting, bears waiting near water sources, in box canyons, along known migration routes. They understood patterns. They remembered individuals. One skull from Nebraska bears human tool marks. Desperate cuts where someone tried to harvest meat from a bear they'd found dead, or thought was dead. The human skeleton found 16 feet away, spines snapped, like kindling, suggests otherwise. Playing dead was an Arctodus speciality, lying motionless for hours, waiting for scavengers, then exploding into violence. Wolves learned to wait days before approaching an Arctodus corpse. Humans had to learn faster or join the fossil record. But here's the mystery that haunts paleontologists. Arctodus vanished just as humans flourished in North America. Climate change? Possibly. Loss of prey? Maybe. But the timing is suspicious. Right when humans developed better projectile weapons, the giant bears disappeared. We like to think we hunted them to extinction. Matthias says, but the truth is probably scarier. I think we learned to avoid them so perfectly, to live in the spaces between their territories, that when climate changed their food sources, we'd already taken all the backup options. We didn't kill them with spears. We killed them with superior planning. The last Arctodus died alone, probably confused why the world had suddenly emptied of prey. It never understood that hairless apes had redirected entire herds, controlled water sources, turned the landscape into a human chessboard where giants had no moves left. Today, hikers in Montana occasionally report seeing impossibly large bears. Science dismisses these as misidentified grizzlies. But Native American tribes remember differently. They have words for the giant bear that translate roughly to the one who owns the earth. They also have protocols, passed down 10,000 years, for what to do if you see one. Run is not on the list. Because you can't outrun something that was built to catch you. You can only outthink it, if you're human enough. The insult was genetic. While Neanderthals benched 500 pounds and Denisovans conquered Himalayan heights, the first Homo sapiens in Morocco 300,000 years ago were built like marathon runners who'd forgotten to eat. Our ancestors were the 98-pound weaklings on a planet of bodybuilders. Dr. Jean-Jacques Houblin holds the evidence in his hands. A sapien skull from Jebel Irhoud, paper thin compared to the thick fortresses other humans called heads. Look at this, he says, rotating the fossil under laboratory lights. You could crack this skull with a firm handshake. Neanderthal skulls? You'd need a sledgehammer. The numbers are embarrassing. Neanderthal muscle attachment points show biceps that could snap our arms like twigs. Their grip strength averaged 260 pounds, enough to crush a modern human's hand during a friendly greeting. One Neanderthal from Shanidar Cave had a humerus thicker than a baseball bat. Meanwhile, Homo sapiens looked like we'd been designed by committee during a budget crisis. Our teeth were jokes. Tiny kernels compared to Heidelbergensis molars that could crack bones. Our jaws were so weak, we needed to cook food just to chew it. Our body hair had vanished, leaving us naked in a world where winter meant death. We couldn't see as well as Erectus, couldn't smell as well as Neanderthals, couldn't hear as well as Floresiensis. If you held a prehistoric Olympics, says Dr. Chris Stringer from London's Natural History Museum, Homo sapiens would come in dead last in every physical event. Running, throwing, fighting. Everyone else was better equipped. We were the species voted most likely to go extinct. The Moroccan fossils tell a story of desperate adaptation. Cut marks on animal bones show sapiens were scavengers, sneaking bites from carcasses after real predators finished. We see evidence of them cracking bones for marrow, not because it was delicious, but because every other human species had already claimed the good parts. One juvenile skeleton shows signs of repeated malnutrition. Growth lines in the teeth start and stop like a crashed computer trying to reboot. This child survived multiple famines that would have killed them today, but survived into what? A world where Neanderthal children were learning to hunt mammoths, while sapiens children were learning to hide. The early sapiens toolkit is almost pitifully basic compared to contemporaries. While Neanderthals crafted elaborate levallois points, we were still figuring out which end of the rock to hold. Our camps were smaller, simpler, sadder. We built fires that Neanderthals would have laughed at, tiny things that barely warmed one side while the other froze. But then, around 280,000 years ago, something strange appears in the archaeological record. Mistakes, lots of them. Failed tool designs, experimental hafting, bizarre items with no clear purpose. While other species perfected techniques over millennia, sapiens were failing faster than everyone else. Our camps are littered with broken experiments, abandoned ideas, tools that make no sense. It's like looking at Thomas Edison's garbage, Hublin notes. 99 failures for every success. Other species found what worked and stuck with it for 100,000 years. Sapiens couldn't stick with anything for 100 days. We see evidence of sapiens trying to copy Neanderthal tools badly, attempting Denisovan high-altitude strategies, failing, mimicking Erectus persistence hunting, collapsing from exhaustion. We were the species that couldn't do anything right. Except learn from being wrong. Each failed tool taught us what didn't work. Each botched hunt showed us what to avoid. Each dead sapiens became a lesson for the living. We didn't have strength, so we developed strategy. We couldn't fight, so we learned to think. We couldn't survive alone, so we built networks that spanned continents. The weak muscles that couldn't throw spears hard enough led to the invention of the atlatl, a lever that multiplied force. The pathetic teeth that couldn't chew raw meat led to controlled fire and cooking. The naked skin that couldn't handle cold led to fitted clothing and shelters. Every weakness became a catalyst for innovation. Homo sapiens, Stringer concludes, were evolution's most successful failures. We failed our way to global domination. The strong don't need to change, only the weak evolve. For 200,000 years before we learned to tie our shoes, Neanderthals ruled Europe with biceps and brains. Forget the knuckle-dragging stereotype. These were the Romans of the Paleolithic, and their empire stretched from Spain to Siberia. La Chapelle-aux-Saints, France, 1908. When archaeologists first reconstructed a Neanderthal skeleton, they made him hunched and stupid-looking. Small problem, the skeleton had severe arthritis. They'd literally built their prejudice around a disabled elder who'd been cared for by his community for years. The real Neanderthals stood straight, proud, and could bench press your refrigerator. Everything we thought we knew was wrong, admits Dr. Paola Villa from the University of Colorado. These weren't primitive brutes. They were apex predators with table manners. The evidence is overwhelming. Neanderthal sites from 300,000 years ago show controlled use of fire, organized living spaces with designated areas for sleeping, cooking, and toolmaking. They didn't just live in caves, they engineered them. At Brunikel Cave, they built mysterious circular structures from stalagmites 176,000 years ago, 300 feet underground, lit only by torches they carried into perfect darkness. Why? We have no idea. But you don't build monuments in the dark unless you have fire mastery and bigger thoughts than mere survival. Their technology was devastating. Levallois technique, a method of stone knapping so complex that modern archaeologists need weeks of training to replicate it poorly, was standard Neanderthal kindergarten. They created stone tools pre-designed in their minds, visualizing the final product inside raw rock, like Michelangelo seeing David in marble. One spear point from Germany shows micro-wear patterns indicating it was resharpened 17 times. 17. These weren't disposable tools. They were maintained, cherished, passed down. Some points show evidence of hafting with birch tar, a glue they manufactured by heating bark in oxygen-free environments, a process requiring precise temperature control and chemical knowledge. But the real Neanderthal advantage was muscle. Shanidar Cave revealed a Neanderthal who'd survived having his arm amputated, not surgically removed, torn off, probably by cave bear. He lived for years afterward, his bones showing he was cared for, fed, protected. His remaining arm developed massive compensatory muscles. One arm, and he was still stronger than any sapiens athlete. Their hunting strategy was simple: get close and hit hard. While wimpy sapiens were developing throwing spears and running away, Neanderthals were tackling mammoths, rodeo cowboys with stone-tipped spears, riding wounded prey into the ground. Bone breaks in Neanderthal skeletons match modern rodeo injury patterns, except these cowboys were hunting elephants. They owned territories like nations. Isotope analysis of Neanderthal teeth shows some individuals never traveled more than 20 miles from birthplace. Others show seasonal movements of hundreds of miles, following herds with GPS precision. They knew every cave, every water source, every ambush site in territories larger than modern European countries. And they decorated themselves. Perforated shells, eagle talons, mineral pigments. Neanderthals wore jewelry 50,000 years before sapiens figured out pants. They buried their dead with flowers, food, tools for the afterlife. They cared for their injured, their elderly, their disabled. They even had art. Hand stencils in Spanish caves dated to 66,000 years ago, 20,000 years before sapiens reached Europe. Abstract patterns that might be calendars, maps, or poetry we'll never decode. They painted because something in their massive brains needed beauty. So why aren't you reading this in Neanderthalish? Because empires built on muscle face one fatal flaw. When the game changes, strength becomes stubbornness. Neanderthals perfected close combat hunting for 200,000 years. When climate shifted and prey thinned out, they kept using the same tactics. Get close. Hit hard. Sapiens, too weak for close combat, invented projectiles, atlatls, bows. We killed from distances Neanderthals considered cowardly. By the time they realized the rules had changed, we'd already taken their territories, their prey, and 2.5% of their DNA. The last Neanderthal died 40,000 years ago in Gibraltar, looking across waters toward Africa, where strange, weak humans kept appearing with new weapons and incomprehensible ideas. He was stronger than any sapiens who ever lived. It didn't matter. In evolution, as in empire, adaptation beats domination. Every time. They left us 3 teeth, a finger bone, and a genetic ghost story that rewrote human history. The Denisovans were evolution's nomads, spreading from frozen Siberia to tropical islands, adapting to environments that would kill other humans, then vanishing so completely we didn't know they existed until 2010. The story starts in Denisova Cave, Siberia, where 300,000 years ago, 3 human species used the same shelter like a prehistoric Airbnb. Neanderthals booked spring and fall. Denisovans preferred winter. Homo sapiens showed up fashionably late, 45,000 years ago, probably complaining about the previous tenants. The finger bone was so small, we almost threw it away, admits Dr. Svante Pääbo, who led the team that discovered Denisovan DNA. It looked like nothing, just another cave fragment. Then we sequenced it and realized we'd found an entirely new branch of humanity. The genetic revelation was staggering. Denisovans split from Neanderthals around 400,000 years ago, then went on walkabout across Asia. But unlike their muscle-bound cousins who stuck to familiar territories, Denisovans adapted to everything. Frozen tundra? No problem. Himalayan peaks? Bring it on. Tropical rainforests? Perfect. Modern Tibetans can thank a Denisovan for their ability to thrive above 13,000 feet. The EPAS1 gene variant that prevents altitude sickness, allowing Tibetans to live where others suffocate, came directly from Denisovan interbreeding. One ancient hookup, 40,000 years of high-altitude advantage. But here's where it gets weird. Melanesians carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA, the highest percentage of any modern population. These tropical island dwellers inherited more ghost genes than Siberians living where Denisovans were discovered. The math only works if Denisovans reached Southeast Asia and started island hopping like prehistoric Vikings. They were everywhere and nowhere, says Dr. Murray Cox from Massey University. We find their genes from the Arctic to the equator, but barely any fossils. It's like trying to reconstruct a civilization from 3 receipts and a grocery list. The receipts tell wild stories. That finger bone belonged to a girl who lived 72,000 years ago. Genetic analysis shows her parents were from completely different Denisovan populations, groups that had been separated for 300,000 years, more genetic distance than between modern humans and Neanderthals. Yet they met, mated, and produced a daughter in a Siberian cave. Denisovan DNA reveals at least 3 distinct populations: Siberian mountain dwellers, Southeast Asian lowlanders, and a mysterious third group that modern Papuans descend from, each adapted to radically different environments, each invisible in the fossil record, each contributing unique genes to modern humans. The Dragon Man's skull from China might be our first look at a Denisovan face, massive, robust, with a brain larger than ours. But even that's disputed. We know more about their sex lives than their faces. They interbred with everyone, Neanderthals, sapiens, and probably species we haven't discovered yet. One Siberian cave yielded Denny, a 90,000-year-old teenager with a Neanderthal mother and Denisovan father. First-generation hybrid. Her existence proves these weren't rare accidents, but regular occurrences. The Pleistocene was less Game of Thrones and more Love Actually with bigger foreheads. But Denisovan technology remains frustratingly invisible. No distinctive tool tradition, no characteristic art. Just genetic breadcrumbs suggesting they were everywhere, adapting to everything, leaving almost nothing behind. The ultimate prehistoric minimalists. Their true innovation might have been flexibility itself. While Neanderthals perfected one lifestyle and sapiens kept experimenting, Denisovans simply adapted. New environment, new genes, new challenges, new solutions. They were evolution's jazz musicians, improvising survival across impossible ranges. So, why did they vanish? Maybe they didn't. When scientists look at modern human genetics, they find Denisovan contributions everywhere. Immune system variants, metabolic adaptations, genes for processing fats, managing blood sugar, fighting parasites. We absorb them so completely that extinction might be the wrong word. They didn't disappear, they dissolved into us. Their bodies are gone, but their genes live on in 1 billion people who've never heard their name. The ghost people became ghosts in our cells, haunting our DNA with adaptations we're still discovering. Every time a Tibetan climbs Everest without oxygen, a Denisovan smiles from 50,000 years ago. Evolution's ultimate vanishing act, becoming invisible by becoming essential. Not bad for 3 teeth and a finger. Liangbua Cave, Flores Island, Indonesia, 50,000 years ago. The last Homo floresiensis watches the ocean, knowing something is wrong. The dragons are acting strange. The stegodons, miniature elephants her people hunted for 900,000 years, are clustering near water, trumpeting warnings in frequencies that make her teeth ache. She stands 3 feet 6 inches tall. In your world, she'd shop in the children's section. In hers, she's an apex predator who brings down elephants with coordinated precision. Her brain is smaller than a chimpanzee's, but she controls fire, crafts complex tools, and navigates an island that would kill you in days. Homo floresiensis shouldn't exist, says Dr. Dean Falk, who studied their brain structure. Every rule says bigger brains equal survival. They break every rule, successfully, for almost 1 million years. The hobbits, scientists hate the nickname but can't stop using it, arrived on Flores when it was connected to mainland Asia. Then sea levels rose, stranding them on an island with limited resources. Evolution's solution? Shrink everything. Bodies, brains, prey, predators. Even the Komodo dragons were smaller then, though still lethal enough to encourage careful walking. But Floresiensis didn't just shrink, they optimized. Their tools show sophisticated reduction sequences, taking large stone cores and systematically producing specific flake shapes, not random bashing. Planned production, They heated stones to improve flaking quality, showing understanding of thermal dynamics that many modern humans lack. One skull, LB1 Flow, revealed a brain reorganized for efficiency. The Brodmann Area 10, associated with planning and memory, was proportionally huge. Tiny brain, massive planning center, like evolution stripped out everything unnecessary and turbocharged what mattered for island survival. They hunted baby stegodons with precision strikes to neural centers, no wasted energy fighting adult elephants. Wait for births, coordinate attacks, strike spine at specific vertebrae, elephants would fall paralyzed. Quick kill, minimal risk. The strategy required patience, observation, and complex social coordination. For 900,000 years this worked perfectly. Then Homo sapiens arrived. The archaeological record shows Floresiensis vanishing right when modern humans reach Flores. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing is suspicious. Did we kill them? Outcompete them? Bring diseases? The evidence is frustratingly absent. No battle sites, no mass graves, they just stopped. The last Floresiensis might have watched our boats arrive, these giants twice her height with strange tools and stranger ideas. Did she understand what she was seeing? The end of a million-year success story? Or did she just see more animals to avoid, like the dragons and giant rats that shared her island? One poignant detail: the last Floresiensis tools show desperate innovation. New designs appearing rapidly, experimentation increasing, like they knew something had changed and were trying to adapt faster than evolution allowed. Tool types that had remained stable for thousands of years suddenly exploding into variation. They were trying to evolve culturally at modern human speeds. They couldn't. Dr. Mike Morwood, who discovered Floresiensis, spent his last years searching for evidence of survivors. Local Flores legends speak of the Ebu Gogo, small hairy people who lived in caves until the 1800s. Grandparents claim their grandparents saw them. Small, fast, spoke in whispers, stole food but never tools. Every culture has cryptid legends, Morwood admitted, but Flores legends are specific. Height, behavior, location, all match Floresiensis fossils. Either it's the most accurate oral history on Earth, or... He never finished the sentence. Scientists aren't supposed to believe in survival, but Morwood kept searching until cancer stopped him. His final notes contained GPS coordinates for unexplored caves, reports of strange footprints, interviews with elders who insisted the small people were real. Probably folklore. Island memories distorted by time. The last Floresiensis died 50,000 years ago when sapiens arrived. That's what the textbooks say. But sometimes, in remote Flores caves, archaeologists find fresh-looking tools made in ancient styles, probably made by modern humans copying old techniques. Probably. The hobbits proved brain size doesn't determine survival. They proved islands create impossible adaptations. They proved 1,000,000 years of success means nothing when the game changes. And they proved that sometimes, just sometimes, extinction leaves question marks instead of periods. On Flores, old women still leave food at cave mouths, just in case. Dr. Ralph von Koenigswald was shopping for dragon bones in a Hong Kong pharmacy when he found the tooth that would haunt paleontology forever. 1935. Traditional Chinese medicine ground fossils into powder, selling extinct species as arthritis cures. But this molar was wrong. Too big for any known primate. Too human for any bear. Gigantopithecus blacki, 10 feet tall, 600 kilograms. Arms like tree trunks. The largest primate that ever lived, surviving until exactly 300,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens emerged in Africa and began the expansion that would empty the world of giants. Imagine a gorilla crossed with a grizzly bear, then triple it, says Dr. Russell Siochon, who spent decades studying Gigantopithecus remains. But herbivorous. A gentle giant that could literally bite your head off, but preferred bamboo. King Kong as a vegetarian. Evolution's strangest joke. For 2 million years, Gigantopithecus dominated Asian forests from China to Vietnam. Not through violence. No evidence of conflict appears on any bones. They dominated through sheer presence. What predator attacks something that could bench press a car? What competitor challenges a creature whose casual backhand would shatter spines? The teeth tell their story. Massive molars with thick enamel, worn flat from grinding. Microscopic analysis reveals phytoliths, plant crystals from bamboo, fruits, seeds. But the wear patterns show seasonal variation. When bamboo failed, they ate bark, roots, anything fibrous enough to fill stomachs the size of washing machines. Their jaws were engineering marvels. Mandibles so massive that early scientists thought they'd found prehistoric giants, human ancestors 10 feet tall. The truth was stranger. These weren't human ancestors, but parallel evolution. Primates that chose size over smarts, strength over strategy. Every adaptation has a cost. Siochon explains, Gigantopithecus paid for size with flexibility. Those massive jaws required massive muscles, which required a sagittal crest, that bony ridge on top of the skull. The muscles squeeze the brain case, big jaw, small brain. They literally couldn't evolve intelligence without shrinking. For 2 million years, that trade-off worked perfectly. Then the climate began to change. 300,000 years ago, the forests of Southeast Asia started fragmenting. Grasslands expanded. Bamboo, which flowers once every 60 to 120 years, then dies, became unreliable. A creature that needs 40 pounds of vegetation daily can't afford unreliable food sources. But here's the mystery. Other megafauna adapted. Elephants learned to migrate. Bears diversified diets. Why couldn't a primate with opposable thumbs and decent intelligence adjust? The answer might be standing in your mirror. The last Gigantopithecus teeth show something disturbing. Cavities. Lots of them. These giants were eating more fruit, higher sugar content, desperate for calories. Their traditional bamboo forests were disappearing, replaced by environments better suited to a new kind of primate. One that used tools, controlled fire, and turned forests into fuel. We don't find Gigantopithecus and early human fossils together, Siochon notes carefully. But the timing is suspicious. Gigantopithecus vanishes exactly when Homo erectus expands across Asia. Either it's coincidence, or the ore hangs in the air like incense in those Hong Kong pharmacies. Did we hunt them? Unlikely. Why attack something that could tear you in half? Did we outcompete them? Possibly. Homo erectus used fire to clear forests, creating grasslands better suited to human hunting. Every burned forest was less Gigantopithecus habitat. But the saddest possibility, we simply took their ecological niche. Both species preferred the same cave sites, water sources, fruiting trees. When resources got scarce, who won? The 10-foot giant who needed 40 pounds of food daily, or the clever ape who could eat anything and use tools to multiply its strength? Vietnamese hill tribes tell stories of the Ngoi Rong, forest people. Giants covered in red hair who lived in caves, never spoke, never used tools. Gentle and less cornered. They'd watch humans from the forest, curious but cautious. The stories say they disappeared when the forests burned. Just stories. Like the Yeti, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Every culture has giant ape legends. Collective memory of Gigantopithecus? Convergent mythology? We'll never know. The giants left only teeth and jaw fragments, no postcranial bones, no DNA, no clear picture of how they lived or died. But those pharmacy teeth tell one truth. Something massive and impossible once walked where cities now stand. It ate bamboo, avoided conflict, and survived 2 million years of evolutionary challenges. Then it met us. The real King Kong didn't die fighting planes atop skyscrapers. It died quietly in shrinking forests, watching strange apes burn the world it couldn't imagine changing. No drama, no battle. Just another giant discovering that in evolution, size is strength until it becomes a liability. In Hong Kong pharmacies, they still sell dragon bones. Sometimes the dragons have very human-looking teeth. The killing grounds at Rancho La Brea tell the goriest story in paleontology. 55,000 bones, 2,000 saber-toothed cats, one clear message. Smilodon fatalis didn't just hunt. It performed executions with surgical precision. People think saber teeth meant super predator, says Dr. Blair Van Valkenburg, who studied more Smilodon skulls than anyone alive. Wrong. Those 7-inch canines were delicate instruments. One bad bite into bone, they'd shatter. These weren't crushing tools, they were scalpels. The mechanics are horrifying in their elegance. Smilodon's jaw could open 120 degrees, almost straight up and down. Modern lions manage 65. That gape wasn't for roaring, it was for positioning those sabers perfectly on a prey's throat, then using massive neck muscles to drive them through windpipe and carotid arteries simultaneously. Death in under 30 seconds, no struggle, no chase, just precision murder. But here's what made Smilodon truly terrifying. It hunted in coordinated groups. La Brea fossils show multiple cats with healed injuries that would have been fatal for solitary predators. Broken legs, shattered ribs, punctured skulls, all mended over months of care. Someone was feeding these injured cats. Someone was protecting them while they healed. We found one specimen with a crushed pelvis, Van Valkenburg continues. It lived for years after the injury, couldn't hunt, could barely walk. But it was well fed, showed no signs of starvation. The only explanation? Family care. Smilodon prides weren't just hunting groups, they were healthcare systems. 300,000 years ago, when our ancestors were still figuring out which end of the rock was sharp, Smilodon had perfected social hunting for 1 million years. They specialized in baby mammoths and ground sloths. Prey that weighed tons but had vulnerable throats. One cat would distract, another would hamstring, the third delivered the killing bite. Then they'd feed the old, the injured, the young. The fossil record shows something else. Smilodon avoided humans. Despite overlapping territories for thousands of years, we find almost no human bones with Smilodon tooth marks. They knew we were trouble. Smart predators recognized dangerous prey. But they couldn't avoid us forever. Climate change struck first. The warm, stable environment Smilodon evolved in began fracturing. Prey animals started migrating unpredictably. Ground sloths, slow, reliable meals, went extinct. Mammoths became scarce. The specialized toolkit that made Smilodon apex predators became a liability. Imagine being the world's best sushi chef, Van Valkenburg analogizes. Then all the fish disappear. Your skills are worthless. That's what happened to Smilodon. They were too specialized for a changing world. Then humans delivered the killing blow. Not through hunting. Why fight something that could disembowel you with a head shake? We killed them through ecosystem disruption. Every mammoth we hunted was food Smilodon needed. Every fire we set changed grazing patterns. Every water source we claimed pushed predators into conflict. The last Smilodon fossils from about 10,000 years ago showed desperation. Broken teeth from biting bone, something they'd avoided for 1 million years. Arthritis from failed hunts. Malnutrition markers. These weren't apex predators anymore. They were starving specialists watching their world evaporate. One La Brea specimen breaks paleontologists' hearts. A young adult with perfect teeth, no injuries, dead from starvation. It knew how to hunt. It had the tools. But there was nothing left to hunt that matched its evolved techniques. Native American oral histories from California describe night tigers with teeth like knives. They say the cats would watch human camps from darkness, never attacking, always watching. The stories say they sang, a low, mournful sound, unlike any living cat. Probably wind through caves. Probably imagination. We tell ourselves Smilodon went extinct because it was over-specialized, Van Valkenburg concludes. But that's human arrogance. They survived 2 million years through ice ages and warm periods. They were perfectly adapted. We just changed the rules faster than evolution could follow. In museum gift shops, children buy plastic Smilodon toys, fascinated by the monster teeth. They play at being predators, stalking stuffed mammoths. They don't understand they're reenacting a tragedy. The death of perfection in an imperfect world. Smilodon didn't fail. The world failed Smilodon. And we were the architects of that failure, armed with nothing but fire and the ability to imagine tomorrow differently than today. The sabers that could kill a mammoth in seconds couldn't pierce the future we were building. No mane, no roar. Just 25% more muscle than any lion you've seen, moving through Pleistocene Europe like death, wearing fur. Panthera spelaea, the cave lion, didn't need to announce itself. When you're 700 pounds of silent murder, reputation travels faster than sound. Dr. Gennady Baryshnikov spent 40 years in Russian caves, mapping territories that would make modern nations jealous. One male controlled 2,000 square kilometers, he tells colleagues at the Zoological Institute. From valley floors to mountain peaks. They didn't just live in caves, they owned entire landscapes. The evidence is written in claw marks, 15 feet up cave walls, territorial scratches that required 600 pounds of muscle to carve into limestone. Modern lions scratched trees, cave lions autographed mountains. The message was clear. Everything you can see belongs to something that can kill you in seconds. But here's the disturbing part. They preferred human-sized prey. Look at the tooth wear. Baryshnikov points to microscopic images, not the heavy grinding you see in mammoth hunters. Fine cuts, precise work. They specialized in reindeer, horses, and anything else that weighed 100 to 200 pounds. Anything else. The euphemism hangs heavy because the fossils are explicit. Vindija Cave, Croatia. Human bones with cave lion puncture marks. Peter Schürrle, Germany. A child's skull showing the characteristic paired holes of massive canines. These weren't accidental encounters. Cave lions learned that humans were perfectly sized meals. Unlike African lions that hunt in prides, cave lions were mostly solitary. Pairs during mating, mothers with cubs, but otherwise alone. No social hunting meant no shared risk. Every kill had to be certain. This created a predator that was pathologically patient. One fossil trackway in France tells a complete story. Human footprints walking steadily. Lion prints appear 50 meters behind, matching pace exactly. For 200 meters, the tracks parallel. Human unaware, lion following. Then the human prints suddenly space wider, deeper, running. The lion tracks explode into bounds covering 4 meters per stride. The trackway ends in disturbed sediment. No more human prints. Cave lions were persistence hunters, explains Dr. Martina Pacher from Vienna. Not the explosive ambush of modern cats. They'd follow prey for hours, days even, waiting for the perfect moment. When humans entered Europe 45,000 years ago, We entered a continent where the apex predator was specifically adapted to hunting us. The Chauvet cave paintings, 32,000 years old, show cave lions with disturbing accuracy. No manes, longer legs than African lions, smaller heads with larger jaw muscles, but it's the eyes that chill, painted with pupils dilated the way cats look in darkness. These weren't observed during safe daylight. Artists saw these lions hunting at night and lived to paint about it. One panel shows 72 lions. Not a pride. Cave lions didn't form prides. This was a gathering, probably at a seasonal kill site. Humans watched and recorded behavior no modern human has seen. They counted. They memorized. They turned predators into art because understanding meant survival. But humans did more than watch. We competed. Both species wanted the same caves for shelter. The archaeological record shows alternating occupation. Lion layers, human layers, lion again. We were in a real estate war with 700-pound landlords. Every cave earned meant fighting something that evolution designed to kill you. The strangest discovery was at Pavilan Cave. Pasha notes, human ritual burial, red lady covered in ochre, but the cave floor below, dozens of cave lion cubs, newborns. Someone cleared a nursery den to bury their dead. The symbolism is staggering. Did we worship them? Fear them? Both. Cave lion imagery appears in art from Spain to Siberia, always accurate, always respectful, no caricatures, no diminishment. Humans who could mock hyenas in art treated cave lions with documentary precision. The extinction pattern is telling. Cave lions vanished from Europe right as human populations exploded. Climate played a role. Their reindeer prey migrated, forests fragmenting territories. But humans were the variable that tipped scales. Every cave we claimed was one less breeding site. Every reindeer we hunted was competition. The last cave lions died in Alaska 14,000 years ago, isolated populations on a continent they'd reached during better times. No caves there, despite the name. Just open tundra and the wrong kind of prey. They died as they lived, alone, silent, leaving only questions. Siberian tribes still perform lion dances wearing pelts that look nothing like modern lions. Longer limbs, no manes, movements that emphasize stalking over roaring. Cultural memory of something that haunted their ancestors' nightmares for 40,000 years. We won because we could imagine them dead. Baryshnikov concludes, they could only see us as prey. That's the difference between animal intelligence and human consciousness. We could picture a world without lions. They couldn't picture a world without us. In the deepest caves of Europe, claw marks still scar the walls. Territorial claims in stone, asserting ownership of domains that outlasted their makers. We live in their former kingdoms, build cities where they hunted, never knowing we walk through invisible territories marked by extinct kings. The cave lion's greatest hunting ground became our entire world, and we never even heard them coming. The matriarch remembered every waterhole across 10,000 square miles. She knew which valleys flooded in spring, where wolves denned in winter, how ice sang before breaking. 60 years of memories encoded in the largest brain of any land animal. She was a woolly mammoth, and her knowledge was keeping 40 relatives alive. Mammoth social structure mirrored elephants but exceeded them, explains Dr. Daniel Fisher, who's examined more mammoth tusks than anyone living. Those tusks are autobiography, every day of their lives recorded in growth rings. We can read stress, pregnancy, migration, starvation. It's like having their diaries. The Beringia Mammoth Graveyard tells one herd's complete story. 43 individuals who died together 45,000 years ago. Infants in the center, juveniles surrounding them, adults forming the outer ring. They died standing, frozen in protective formation around their young. Whatever killed them, sudden blizzard, icebreak, poison gas from permafrost, they faced it as a family. Mammoths weren't just big elephants in fur coats. They were ecosystem engineers. One mammoth ate 300 pounds of grass daily, but their trampling and fertilization created more grassland than they consumed. They knocked down trees, creating mosaic landscapes. Their migrations carved highways across continents that humans would follow for millennia. The mammoth steppe was a mammoth creation, Fisher continues. From Spain to Canada, they maintained grasslands that supported millions of animals. When mammoths disappeared, forests returned. They didn't just live in their environment, they created it. But creation requires wisdom, and mammoth wisdom was matriarchal. The oldest female led, her sisters and daughters forming leadership councils. Males left at puberty, forming bachelor groups or going solitary. During musth, hormonal madness, bulls would battle for breeding rights, but matriarchs decided who actually mated. One tusk from Siberia shows a female who lived 72 years. The isotopes in her ivory map a lifetime of travels. Born near the Arctic Ocean, she migrated to central Siberia as a teenager, spent decades leading her herd across territories the size of Texas, returned to her birthplace to die. 70 years of navigation without GPS, following routes invisible to us. Humans entered this world like mice at a ballet. Kotylevo, Russia, 23,000 years ago, a human campsite surrounded by mammoth bones, not random kills, specific individuals, young adults, mostly males, the dangerous loners humans could isolate from protective herds. We learned their psychology, exploited their biology. Early humans didn't hunt mammoths, Fisher clarifies. They hunted mammoth behavior. They knew bulls went solitary. They knew matriarchs avoided certain terrains during calving. They knew panic movements when herds smelled fire. We were behavioral psychologists 20,000 years before psychology existed. The Gravettian mammoth hunters left us their technology. Spear points designed not to kill but to hamstring. Driving lanes built from stones, funneling movement. Cliff sites where whole herds were driven to death. But also stranger evidence. Mammoth bone huts arranged with architectural precision, as if the bones themselves contained building instructions. Did mammoths communicate with infrasound like modern elephants? Those frequencies travel miles below human hearing. Matriarchs could coordinate herds beyond visual range, warn of dangers, share locations of resources. A communication network spanning continents invisible to human senses. We've recorded modern elephants making calls that register on seismographs, Fisher notes. If mammoths did similar, they had continent-wide social networks, Facebook for pachyderms. When humans started disrupting herds, we weren't just killing individuals, we were severing communication systems millions of years old. The baby mammoth Liuba, frozen for 42,000 years, had milk in her stomach. Her trunk contained mud. She drowned crossing a river her herd had probably crossed safely for generations. One bad step, one moment of inattention, her body shows signs of desperate struggle but also care. Someone, likely her mother, tried to pull her free. Trunk marks on her body show futile rescue attempts. Even mammoths couldn't save everyone. The last woolly mammoths died on Wrangel Island 4,000 years ago, isolated in